You should have very strong intentions. And one of those intentions was to come in with high emotional sensitivity. Because for the non-physical, you knew this was a superpower. You knew that this would help you engage certain intentions and certain vibrations within you to let the law of attraction do its work and find information such as this. This gives you a leg up, an advantage. Some would say an unfair advantage. From your physical perspective, you might not say it's unfair or even an advantage, or definitely not a superpower. You might bemoan your emotional sensitivity. You might wish that you were different than you are. But as you think about things in a new way and look at your perspective in every area of your life, when you dive into what you might have thought was weird before or woo-woo, when you realize that there's so much more going on here than you could possibly imagine, and that you're guided in every single moment of your life from a perspective that can see who you are and knows you're connected and knows what you intended and realizes that you really, really, really wanted to be here now. Well, if you look at your life that way, and you understand that you couldn't be here now, whether you're on this call now or listening at a later date, you could not be hearing this information if you were not this magnificent, limitless, eternal being full of experience and coming with great intention. So when you realize this about yourself, you've automatically shifted your perspective. You've automatically understood that what you've been taught in the past is simply a bunch of beliefs. You know nothing. You are endeavoring to discover more, primarily to feel better or to get what you lack. But that's the hook that got you here. And now that you're here, you can start thinking in a new way, especially about yourself. Can you possibly remember who you are? Well, as you're learning this information, what you're actually doing is remembering who you are. In the non-physical, you have access to all that is known. And so there is much known in the non-physical. What's unknown is unknown. But as you endeavor to live this life and shift your perspective, you unlock the unknown for yourself, for everyone around you, for the mass consciousness of this planet of humans, and for all of us in the non-physical. This is why we are so fascinated by all of you. And those of you who are on the leading edge of thought, who are looking at things from a brand new perspective in a way that no other human has ever done before, well, we marvel at your courage and bravery and magnificence as you move along, shifting your perspective higher and higher and higher. As you shift that perspective, which is not easy because you have to let go of that which limits you along the way. But as you shift that perspective, you enter new densities that no human has ever entered before. And in those densities contains access to information and ideas and inventions and philosophies and new thoughts and new ways of being. You grow stronger. Your intentions and the vibration of those intentions grow stronger. You attract what you want, what you truly want, what you think you want, all of it. You attract everything you think about and focus on much faster. You become powerful manifestors. Those who are existing in the lower densities, living in fear, they may hear this information to some extent, and they may want to use that information to manifest what they lack. But because they're in the lower densities and because they're perceiving themselves as a victim, meaning that they perceive outside conditions that can make them feel something, they are moving slowly and do not have the access to the ideas and inspiration and actions and decisions that are available at the higher densities. So what you're actually doing is you're remembering who you are as you move up in these densities. And along the way, you'll get ideas and thoughts that counter your limiting beliefs, that are opposed to those beliefs, beliefs which many of you consider facts. What you think you know about this reality is but a small wavelength or bandwidth. You are operating within a narrow bandwidth of physical reality. As you move into higher densities and shift your perspective in every area of your life, you broaden that bandwidth to see more. but you cannot see more if you exist in a state of fear. If you hold on to the fear, hold on to the limiting beliefs, hold on to the judgment, hold on to the identity, you cannot see more because you cannot move out of the present density into a higher density. The limiting beliefs of the judgment and what you think you believe and all the control is holding you down, like the ballast on a hot air balloon. When you cut away those sandbags, you lift up. And so one of the ideas that we brought to you early on was this idea that you could process limiting beliefs. How is that done? Well, anytime you ever feel negative emotion, it is a sign, an indication that you are holding on to a belief which limits you, a limiting belief, a belief that is not true whatsoever, but you hold it to be true, and maybe you want it to be true because in believing it's true, you have what you think is some form of control. Since all control is based in fear, it does not serve you. And so as you do the work to process your limiting beliefs, you let that go. Letting it go means letting go of whatever does not serve you. What does not serve you just happens to be beliefs that are not accurate. Beliefs that are not accurate, when triggered, cause negative emotion. Therefore, any event, which we call manifestation events, that trigger any negative emotion are showing you your limitation. Since you are limitless beings, you very, very, very much want to know those limitations. You want to address them, process them, prove that they're false, soften them, to the point that when you receive inspiration, the fear's not too great. This is the secret to this life. The secret is you live in a density, that you're moving up in densities through shifting perspective, that the shift of perspective is enabled by processing limiting beliefs which have never been true. Once you address your beliefs, look at your beliefs, process your beliefs, understand beliefs, realize that you do not know anything and that no one outside of you knows anything either. So to follow someone else who you believe knows something when they can't possibly know something from their limited perspective, not even if they claim to be an expert in that area, you are giving your power to someone else. Your power comes strictly from within, from communication to your inner self and your guides and supporters. Inspiration comes from within and often from without. When you see someone else doing something interesting, when you get an invitation from a friend, when you get an idea or a suggestion, that could be inspiration. But how are you to know? How are you to know it's not an urge to change the conditions? Well, as you practice this and as you move up in densities and see yourself from a higher perspective, you'll realize one thing. There is an illusion going on here, and that illusion is based in separation. Connection is the truth. And so when you're inspired to do something to connect, that's likely inspiration. And when you have an urge to do something that separates, that's likely not inspiration. When you act on inspiration, you'll be led into experiences that offer you the opportunity to see yourself from a higher perspective. When you act on an urge, you separate yourself more, you dive more deeper into this limitation and illusion of separation, and your limiting beliefs become stronger and entrenched. It's not so hard to process limiting beliefs, but it is a game of momentum. The life you've lived up to this point in time has been the momentum of separation, and limiting beliefs go along with that. You can shift that momentum when you observe these things that you perceive are limiting you. You don't think you can do something? There's a limiting belief, a limitation. You don't think you can have something? There's a limiting belief, a limitation. It's about how you perceive yourself, not anyone else. They have no control over you whatsoever. You give them power or not, that's up to you. But the limitation is always, always self-imposed. In reality, you are truly free. You're free to have, be, and do anything. But what are you going to do? Are you wanting to do what others have done before? Just jump in one of those boxes? Or are you ready for something different, something that has not been experienced before, something unimaginable? We know you are, and we're ready to talk to you about anything you'd like to talk about. Who'd like to start?